Greek mythology, unlike many other mythologies throughout history, has lingered in every aspect of our lives, a pendulum of relevance swinging that's always nearby. I will be going over the numerous ways in which the Greek mythos has left its mark on our lives. Its influence can be seen in many of the sciences, most all of our arts, and especially in our storytelling. Greek mythology is a compilation of stories and myths used to solidify social and cultural norms and was often used to explain natural phenomena like seasonal changes and death. Each story has a moral or a lesson that the poet sang or spoke the story would impart on their audience, those stories rarely ending well for the heroes. The audience itself was anywhere from the civilians attending the theater to a royal dinner party where stories such as the Iliad would be performed over multiple night supper via poetry and song. For the Iliad, the lesson was less so one of example and more so a warning. It focuses on Achilles' wrath in the bloody Trojan War, contrasted by the widely accepted secondary story by Homer, the Odyssey, which portrays Odysseus' strife-filled journey home and his resilience. Few Greek stories ended with anything but strife. Heroes going through trial after trial in search of family, love, or monetary gain, each ending with such intense struggle that the hero is irrevocably changed. When Odysseus returned to his wife and son after his 20 years at sea, after the war, he was disguised by the goddess Athena so he could travel through his kingdom unmoored by his wife's unruly suitors, waiting to take up his throne. Upon meeting her, he proclaimed his change. He was not the man she married. He was a man bloodied and battered, and a man who had bloodied and battered. While Odysseus was granted his family and love at the end of his story, he was also burdened by war and regret, many heroes sharing his final resting place. One of the most one of the most important places where the mythos of the Greeks has impacted our day-to-day lives now is their science. Despite many viewing the times ancient Greece inhabited as a fundamentally less advanced time filled with war and strife, it's the time where so much of our modern medicine was developed and the groundwork for our daily lives were laid. Even in their depictions of gods lay the foundations of science today. Through their association with gods and unexplained phenomena, Asclepius, the god of medicine, who was viewed as the father of surgery, and the naming of stories and constellations and celestial bodies. In astrology, we can see their influence via their names, which were derived from the Roman equivalents of the Greek Olympians: Venus and Aphrodite, Pluto and Hades, Neptune and Poseidon, Mars and Ares, Jupiter and Zeus, and the list goes on. Even the constellations are given their own explanations in Greek mythos, each with their own history and explanation, a testament to how much we as humans want for knowledge. We are surrounded by Greek mythology, whether we realize it or not, especially in the sciences. As I mentioned in the previous as I mentioned in the previous slide, the Greek god Asclepius was revered as the founder of medicine due to his immense skill and precision, his staff becoming associated with medicine and healing. The son of the Olympian Apollo learned the art of healing, and in his myth was given two vials of the Gorgon Medusa's blood, one which could revive and one which could kill. The concept of cesarean birth, which was one which was known and appeared in myths such as the birth of Dionysus and Asclepius, who were extracted from their dying mothers' bodies, depictions showing them being taken from their mothers' stomachs in a similar way we now use to aid in the birth of difficult pregnancies. Even in the most basic form, most of our medical terminology comes from Greek myth. In psychology, there is narcissistic personality disorder, from the story of Narcissus, who fell in love with his own reflection. Physiology has the Achilles tendon, named after the lone vulnerable part of the Greek hero Achilles, born of his mother's hold on him when she dipped him in the Styx. Chronic from Kronos, the titan associated with time. Hypnosis from the chthonic god Hypnos, whose domain was sleep. The list goes on. The Greeks were some of the main founders of astrology as we know it today, with the hypotheses made by Aristotle and Ptolemy surrounding meteorology and the concept of the universe. One of those stories created during Greek mythology was the constellation of Orion. Orion was a hunter who boasted his skill and was punished by the earth god Tit by the earth ta Titan Gaia and given memorial in the stars by Artemis and her mother Leto. The story given to the compilation of stars that, when charted and connected, would be interpreted as a man posed to shoot a bow. To this day, we use these terms, those placeholders, despite the story not being well known anymore. We hold on to this proof that the Greeks existed and continue to. Art throughout the ages has always been intrinsically connected to the art of Hellenic Greece and its myths, some of the most influential and popular pieces being depictions of said myths. Some of the major components of this influence are sculpture, ceramics, and storytelling. The Romans in their sculpting took the classical style and formed their own unique yet derivative style, distinguishing them from the Greeks while upholding their influence. Today, we see influences of the Greek mythology in modern tattoo style depictions of the Roman retelling of Medusa's story being a symbol of sexual assault. And despite the divergence from the original story, there still lies the impact the Greeks made upon the world through their stories. There was a comment on a video regarding the musical Hadestown, which portrays the story of Orpheus and Eurydice. Every love, every love story is a retelling of their love, they claimed. And upon reflection, they are, in many ways, the foundations for so many love stories today. The main divergence being the modern yearning for a happy ending. So many stories we read today have been in some way influenced by the Greek mythos, whether overtly, like in Hercules, the Disney movie released in 1997, or the popular retelling of the Iliad, the Song of Achilles, portraying Achilles and Patroclus as lovers, or more obscure, like the subtle influences of Homer in our writing and poetry. All throughout history, there has been a fascination with the retelling and portraying of Greek stories. The Romans reassigning of gods and their stories, Renaissance era paintings like The Birth of Venus, and modern day retellings like Percy Jackson bringing the stories back into the limelight of popular culture once again. The Greeks and Romans are well known for their sculpture and ceramics, which portray scenes found in mythology. Some of the most known being the winged victory of Samothrace, an incomplete sculpture of a woman with wings, believed to be Nike, dating to the second century. As we move into later centuries, we can continue to see the influence of the Greeks in Roman sculpture. Augustus of Primaporta, in the stance and style of the sculpture likely created somewhere around 20 BC. Despite the prevalence of Christianity in the modern day, there is a rising population of Hellenic polytheists and pagans, those who believe in and worship the gods of the Hellenic era. Hellen Hellenism Hellenism has but a small number in Greece, most of its numbers coming from the curiosity of the Western world. Its popularity growing through social media sites like TikTok, where people are able to share their histories, while while Hellenistic Hel- while Hellenistics don't have any standing religious sites in modern day, many will devote altars to the gods in a similar fashion to the devotion and worship seen in ancient Greece. Often the altars are devoted to one god who the person spends specific attention to. There's no real number of Hellenists around the world due to its lack of census specification, and many Hellenists hiding it due to fear of judgment. When doing research, the number was anywhere from thousands to millions. The popularization of Hellenism has led to a widespread knowledge of Greek gods, and similar to debate over the way we speak of Christian gods and whether they deserve and similar to the debate over the way we speak of Christian gods and whether they deserve respect, there has been a debate over whether or not the Hellenistic gods deserve that. The main problem social media is facing with this is how little we know of the gods and just how different their portrayals are to other religions. The Greek gods are almost always portrayed as distinctly human, a reflection of ourselves with the same flaws and problems. The Olympians bicker and fight, but they also value family in a similar vein to us, each representing a vein of humanity, their myths, an extension of their stories, used as lessons more akin to a fable, a warning, or lesson that doesn't exactly always reflect upon the gods themselves. And here are my references.